Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I feel so privileged, happy to be here with all of you, and most importantly, to speak about the lessons, what we can learn from Ramayana or just going through Ramayana. So this is a very, very humble and insignificant attempt to prepare our consciousness to welcome this most beautiful festival of Ram Navami, which we would be celebrating in few days' time. So because this was a weekend, so we thought that we can schedule the classes now as more number of people would be available during this time. So it's an attempt to glorify Lord Ramchandra and to glorify all the other characters who are there, the associates of Lord Ramchandra, and to understand the perspective and how we can apply or what we can apply in our life from their life. So let us begin this journey. Here we have a shloka which offers respects to Lord Ramchandra. So before beginning, I would invite all of you also to chant along with me. Lokabhiramam Ranarangadhiram Rajivanetram Raghuvanshanatham Karunyarupam Karunakarantam Shri Ramachandram Sharanam Prapadye Shri Ramachandram Sharanam Prapadye Shri Ramachandram Sharanam Prapadye. So this shloka means, I take refuge in Shri Rama, who's pleasing to the people, who's calm and composed in the battlefield, whose eyes are like blue lotuses, and who's the Lord of Raghu dynasty, who's an embodiment of compassion and showers his compassion to all. I take refuge in the lotus feet of Sri Ramachandra. Sri Ramachandram Charanam Prapadye. So now beginning with the Ramayana. So before we get into it, let us see what is the relevance of different scriptures. So we have different scriptures. We have Ramayana, we have Mahabharata, we have Srimad Bhagavatam. So these various scriptures, actually Ramayana indicates how to be a leader, how to lead the life. Actually, that was the purpose of the incarnation or Lord Ramchandra coming himself to establish how an ideal leader or a king should be. So the whole Ramayana, the attempt is how to lead. Mahabharata, it talks about how to live. So there are so many ups and downs and difficulties and how to manage and what is right and what is wrong and how to live. That is what we learn from Mahabharata. And Srimad Bhagavatam teaches us how to leave this world. It teaches us the art of dying. So we have heard the art of living, but Srimad Bhagavatam teaches us how to die, because we understand that how Parikshit Maharaj was about to leave his body in 7 days, and he perfected his life just by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So these are in a nutshell the very important Puranas or the scriptures which we refer. And then going a little deeper into Ramayana, so we know that Ramayana has total 6 Kand, and then there is this Uttarakand which came later as an appendix. So the main portion of Ramayana is divided into 6 Kanda or parts. So the first one is Bal Kand, which spans over 13 years. And then there is Ayodhya Kand, which talks about a period of 1 year. Then there is Aranya Kand. Aranya means forest. So Aranya Kand, which talks about 13 years. Then there is Kishkinda Kand, which is just for 2 months. So that is Kishkinda Kand. The last Kand is Yuddha Kand, where the Yuddha happens between Ramchandra and Ravana. So that is Yuddha Kand, and that is for 6 months. Now you must be wondering, why did I skip out this one Kand in between? So this one, the 5th one, as you can see on the screen, is Sundar Kand. And Sundar Kand is the most Sundar portion or beautiful portion of Ramayana. And especially in North India, There are so many people who, like, on a regular day-to-day basis also, they recite Sundarkand. They recite Sundarkand daily. Kanthasth hai unko. They have memorized Sundarkand. My grandfather, my maternal grandfather, my Nanaji was one such person who would recite Sundarkand so often. So this Sundarkand gets its name because Hanuman's one name is Sundar. And this Sundarkand describes just the glories of Hanuman. And compared to the other Kand, which spans for 13 years or 1 year or 6 months, Sundarkand is just for 2 days. It's a description just of 2 days, but it is so beautiful. One, because Hanumanji's glories are described, the glories of the devotee of the Lord. And second, because 3 characters are discussed in Sundarkand. And all these 3 characters are Sundar or beautiful. So there is a description of Hanuman and his activities. There is a description of Mother Sita. And then there is a description of Rama, which Hanuman gives to Sita. So all these 3 people are beautiful, and that is why this gets the name Sundarkand. So actually my presentation, or my humble effort to glorify Ramayana, so I have divided into 3 sections. So today we would be covering or discussing about till the time Ram leaves for the forest. And then the second section talks about the life in the forest. And the third section, the most beautiful, would be about the Sundarkand. So this is how we have divided it. And now, talking about Ramayana, so Ramayana, we see it again, it covers 3 main places. So Ramayana has Ayodhya, it has Kishkinda, and it has Lanka. So as you can see on your screen, so 3 different places: Ayodhya, Kishkinda, and Lanka. Now 3 different cities, actually, it represents the mindset or the Sanskriti or the culture of those people who were staying there. And these 3 categories, I mean, we can see this very clearly cut out categories, and people were quite different from one another. So if we talk about Ayodhya, it was a place of highly cultured people. In fact, it is mentioned that in Ayodhya, none of the shop would sell the lock, because people would not lock anything, because there was no theft. And then no one was able to give charity because there were no beggars. So that is the prosperity of Ayodhya, and that was the attitude and high cultural background of the people of Ayodhya. In Ayodhya, the people were full of gratitude. They were always God conscious, and they would express this gratitude. Like it is described that when Rama's coronation was about to happen, rather when Rama's coronation was happening, after his Vanvas, when he had come back and when his coronation was happening, so people were sprinkling different things, and somebody threw some red powder, dry powder, जैसे वो गुलाल वगैरह type का. So they threw some red powder. When Mother Sita saw that red powder, she was immediately reminded of the blood which had come out of Jatayu, and she started thinking of how Jatayu had sacrificed his life, and she started thinking that if not for Jatayu, this coronation would not have happened. So such degree of gratitude and gratefulness is exhibited by people of Ayodhya. On the other hand, we see is the city of Lanka. So Lanka people have this Vikriti culture, Vikrit, destroyed, disturbed culture. In fact, rather than culture, people are like vultures there. They keep snatching others' property, and we know how Ravana, he snatched somebody else's wife itself. So actually the culture there is just eat, drink, and be merry, just be happy. And what to talk of gratitude? I mean, that and all does not exist there. So that is, in fact, Ravana was one of the most ungrateful person, because he was worshipping Lord Shiva, and simultaneously it is mentioned that he wanted to enjoy the wife of Lord Shiva. So we can imagine what do they know about gratitude? So that was Lanka. And in between these 2 cities is Kishkinda. Now Kishkinda, people are more like you and me. People are more like sometimes right, sometimes wrong. It is described that people are akritagya there. Akritagya means they forget to be grateful. So like some of you may know, or most of you may know, that there were these two brothers, Vali and Sugriv, and then Rama helped Sugriv, and Rama got Sugriva's kingdom back, and he got his wife back. And then Sugriva in turn had promised that he would help Ramchandra in finding out where Mother Sita is. So when all this happened, Chaturmasya period started. Chaturmasya means rain, season of rain. So during those 4 months, Chaturmasya is for 4 months. So generally these 4 months, people do not travel from one place to another. So Lord Rama said, okay, so for 4 months we will take a break, and after that, Sugriva, we will go and search Sita. And Sugriv said yes. And then it is described that Sugriv got so busy in his own enjoyment that he completely forgot about his promise. Now, for Sugriv, the time was just running like anything because he was busy in enjoyment. On the contrary, for Lord Rama, each and every single moment was very difficult to partake of because he was constantly reminded of Sita and where she would be and what type of agonies she would be facing. So he was busy thinking on those things. So Sugriva almost forgot. Sugriva got so much engrossed in sense enjoyment that he forgot completely. And then what happens is, there is a long story as how Rama sends Lakshman, and then Lakshman reminds him, and then Sugriv comes, and then Sugriv is reminded of of Rama's big favor, what he has done. And then he was like, yes, I'll come and I'll do. And he did everything. So the point is that he needed a reminder. So it's not that he was spontaneously like that. He needed a reminder and then he did. So this is what Ayodhya, Kishkinda and Lanka is. Now in these 3 cities, there are 3 brothers duo, which is very interesting again. So in Ayodhya, we have Rama and Bharat. In Kishkinda, we have Vali and Sugriv. And then in Lanka, we will hear about Ravan and Kumbhakarna. So now 3 brothers and very different type of interactions, etc. So let's start this time from Ravan and Kumbhakarna, or from Lanka. So in Lanka, Ravan would do all the wrong things, and his brother Kumbhakarna, he would be assisting in doing all the wrong things. So he was all there. In fact, in Lanka, it is described that the competition would be that this is wrong and this is more wrong. Like this is bad and this is worst. So which one shall we choose? So this is how they would be thinking and doing things in Lanka. And coming to Kishkinda, where Vali and Sugriv was there, so they would discriminate that this is right, this is wrong, this is my wife, this is my palace, okay, so this is right, actually I should be owning this. So like normal people like us, we do discriminate between right and wrong. In fact, in Kishkinda, there are 3 categories of monkeys. There were monkeys like Vali, who were demoniac, who were friend of Ravan. Then there were monkeys like Sugriv, who were quite simple and like trying to progress towards spirituality, or Lord Ramachandra. And then there were monkeys like Hanuman, who were the most exalted devotees. So 3 categories of monkeys, and this was Kishkinda. And then we have Ayodhya, where we have brothers like Ram and Bharat. So the description is there that when Rama left everything and he went to the forest, Bharat goes behind him, and Bharat wanted Rama to come back. So Bharat gave lots of logic and reasoning that how it is proper for Ram to come back and rule the kingdom. He gave lots of logic and he gave lot of scriptural proofs also. And then Ramachandra starts speaking. And Rama gives the other part of the evidences, and he proves that how he must be staying in the forest. So you know what is the competition there in Ayodhya? What is right and what is more right. So Ayodhya is what is right and what is more right. That is what Ram and Bharat were fighting for. Though they were fighting, they were having this argument, but what is right and what is more right. And Ravan and Kumbhakarna, what is wrong and what is more wrong. And Vali and Sugriv, what is right and what is wrong. So the whole point, my dear devotees, is that this whole Ramayana is a journey from Lanka to Ayodhya. So don't get lost somewhere. We have to find out that where am I heading to? Am I moving towards Ayodhya? Am I taking shelter of Lord Ramachandra? Or am I moving towards Lanka and giving into my temptations? So now let us begin the story of Ayodhya, and let me invite all of you to come to Ayodhya and see what is happening there. So as we know, Ayodhya is ruled by King Dasharath. Now this name Dasharath has some significance. Dasarath, Dasha is 10 and Rath is chariot. So actually if we read Bhagavad Gita, the body is compared to the chariot and the senses keep running in all the different 10 directions. So Dasharath refers to a person who controls all these 10 senses. All the 10 senses are completely under his control. Such a person is Dasharath. And he is the ruler of Ayodhya. So Ayodhya is a city where there is no yuddh. That is how it gets its name, Ayodhya. So there is no yuddh. So everything is very calm and quiet and peaceful. And this person has complete control over his senses. And as a result, what happens? Birth of Lord Ramchandra. So similarly, when we become peaceful, when our senses are under our control, then Lord Rama would appear in our lives. So that is how we have to figure out to reach at that position, and then things would get under control. So now talking about Dasharath. So Dasharath, I'm not going too much into detail of the storyline because I'm quite sure that Ramanand Sagar has done a lot of justice, and then I think there was a Ramayana by B.R. Chopra also. So most of us would know the storyline or the flow of Ramayana. So I'm not getting into too much detail about the story. But then one night when Dasharath was sleeping, he actually had a nightmare. He saw some snake and some furry monsters and he was quite shaken. It was not a normal, regular nightmare. So he was quite shaken, and in the middle of the night, he got up and he got this feeling that this nightmare indicates that my time of death is close by. So this is what indication he derived, and then he became very puzzled. He started walking up and down and he was thinking what should be the right course of action, what he should be doing. And then suddenly this thought flashed within him like a moonbeam. The space of Rama came to him and he started thinking that how Rama is my life, my breath, my real wealth, my eldest son, and how this is the time for me to make him the king. How it is the time for coronation of Rama, because I feel that my life is little less, so I should install him as the king, and then he will take care of the kingdom. So this is how he started planning the things. And then the next day morning, he woke up, and with this happy thought, he started proceeding towards his kingdom. When he was in Ayodhya, so this is how he was like surrounded by all the citizens whom he liked, and happily the next day with lot of ray of hope, he started moving forward. So when his mind was clear and he was going, and then suddenly he remembered that first thing what he should be doing is go to the hope center of Ayodhya. Before going to his palace, he went to this hope center. Now what is this hope center? It is the temple of Lord Ranganath. So he went to the temple of Ranganath, he prayed there, he offered his obeisances, and he prayed for the protection from all evil, and he also prayed that the Lord empower him to take all the right decisions. This was his prayers, and then he headed straight to his court. So there he was surrounded by lot of ministers. Now, Dasharath would not take his decisions on his own. So what he would do is, when he reached, like that day when he reached, he explained the whole scenario. He said how he has become quite old and the time has come that he should cater to his spiritual needs. So he asked all the others that this is my proposal, that I'll make Rama the king. And then he asked everyone for their opinion. So all the ministers unanimously, they agreed that Ichhamaham Mahabahum Raghuviram, that we all desire to have Raghuveer as our king. So here we see that how king was not the lawmaker, but the law keeper. So everyone together would come to a consensual decision, and this is what would be followed. So then this news was passed on to Rama. Rama was called to the court, he was informed, and then he started preparations. So again, there is a long description of how Rama was preparing his consciousness. He started preparing himself for this coronation by fasting and by performing austerities. So Rama did not get very excited and started thinking, wow, I'll be the king and all that. He was not thinking like that. He did not get carried away by the power which he would be attaining. But what happened is he became even more serious, and he was more focused on the responsibility which would be coming to him. And that is why he started preparing himself and his consciousness. So Sita and Rama, they sat for a yajna, they did yajna, they offered fire to the sacrifice, and then the whole night they fasted, and this is how they started their preparation. And kahani mein twist. So we see the other side. We all know the other side, that there is this lady, this hunchback lady Manthara. So Manthara, it is mentioned, or we can say categorically, that Manthara has a mental disease. Now what was that mental disease? This mental disease that Rama should not be the king. Her attachment towards Bharat. She wanted to see Bharat to prosper. So the diseases are of two types, physical disease and mental disease. So physical diseases are not all contagious, but mental disease are all very, very contagious. And if you sit to a person who has this mental disease, like if you have a friend who's always negative, so if you sit and spend some time with him, then you will also become negatively oriented. If you sit with a person who's envious, then you would also become envious. If you sit with a person who's a fault finder, then you would also start finding fault with others. So same happened here, that Manthara had this mental disease. She would feel very insecure, and she was so attached to her Bharat that she actually poisoned the mind of KAIKEYI. And KAIKEYI was completely possessed, as if by ghost. This thought started haunting her. So what happened is, one rarely gets possessed by the ghost, but more often one gets possessed by the thoughts and one's own concept. So ghosts, so very, very rarely that we hear that somebody gets possessed. But when sometimes this type of thought, this negative thing, or I want to harm somebody and such things creeps in my mind, or this insecurity creeps in my mind, then it is very, very difficult. So this is what was happening to KAIKEYI. And then there is this whole description that how she goes to the Kop Bhavan. So Kop Bhavan is a place where they would exhibit their anger. So she goes there in the Kop Bhavan, she lies down in the Kop Bhavan, and she starts throwing all her jewelry and all her silken clothes. So she changed into very simple cotton clothes, and she threw away, scattered everything on the floor of that room, and she was there in Kop Bhavan angry. So Dashrath got to know that KAIKEYI is angry. And now Dashrath, he thinks that he is very powerful and he can control everything, and he can of course satisfy his wife. So he thought, okay, no problem, I'll deal with her. Thinking that he goes there and he goes on his own strength that he can handle. He had no idea what was about to happen, how the whole thing was about to take a complete turn, and how everything would be upside down. So when Dashrath entered the room, he found KAIKEYI lying there on the floor and all the things scattered, and she was like very disturbed and disarranged and disheveled. And when Dashrath came inside, and then they had this discussion, and as we all know that KAIKEYI asks for her two boons, 14 years of exile for Rama and Bharat to be the king. When Dashrath Maharaj hears this, the situation actually changes. So this time, KAIKEYI gets up, KAIKEYI is roaring there, KAIKEYI is reminding him of what he had promised and how he must fulfill his promise and all that. And Dashrath Maharaj is lying on the floor completely disheveled, because now he gets this mental disease. So this is how contagious it is, and she passed it on, and he was so disturbed. He was so disturbed with this thought, and he was telling that I do not discriminate between my sons. It is okay if you are asking for Bharat to be the king, but why 14 years of banishment for Rama? I am not able to take this, and if you will do this, then I myself will die. So all that starts happening there. And again, I'm not going in detail there, assuming that we all know that part of conversation. So here we have something very interesting, that mantra represents crooked mind. Like our mind, when it becomes very crooked and it starts asking for something which is not proper or which is not appropriate, so that is the time when we are actually acting like mantra. And Dashrath represents the weak intelligence. So sometimes our mind is so strong and crooked, and the intelligence becomes very weak. Intelligence almost gives into it. So Dashrath represents weak intelligence, and Kaikeyi represents us, caught up between mind and intelligence. So Kaikeyi, till this time it was mentioned that she was extraordinarily loving towards Rama. She had no problem towards Ramchandra, and she was king's favorite queen. So of course she was privileged. So at no point of time she has experienced anything which would make her so insecure. But because of the crooked mind, this is how she was acting. So much so that she knew that how dear Rama was to Dashrath. And she knew that Dashrath would die. And Dashrath was pleading and saying that I will die if you will separate me from Ramachandra. But she was just not convinced. She was just not hearing. She was so stubborn. She was fixed on her needs. So her focus was her needs, and she was not taking into consideration of all these years of togetherness where Dashrath has treated her so well, where Rama has treated her so well. In fact, there are times when Kaikeyi would say that Rama is much superior to Bharat in all aspects, and she would love Rama more than Bharat. It is mentioned that she wanted to see Rama's face the first person in the morning when she would wake up. So to that extent, she was attached to Rama. But then when the mind captures our intelligence, and this is how we get caught up. Another important thing about the marriage, an ideal marriage is not only where husband and wife desire each other, but also the one where they have the same desire. So here we see that the problem is because Kaikeyi is desiring something else. She's desiring something which might cause Dashrath's death, and yet she is stuck up there. So this is not an ideal marriage. So proceeding further, so now this news started traveling, and Sumantra was sent to call upon Rama. So back there in the palace where Ram and Sita were preparing themselves, so they had got up, and then Sumantra had come, and he announced that King Dashrath and Queen Kaikeyi wants to see you. So Rama's instant reaction was that father and mother decided something wonderful for our well-being, benefit and prosperity, and that is why they are calling me. So this is what he instantly tells Sita when he hears that Kaikeyi and Dashrath has called. So before leaving, it's a very sweet and small incident which happens there. Before leaving, actually, he looks at Sita, he smiles, and at that time Ramchandra was wearing a beautiful flower garland. So he takes out that garland, he removes that garland, and he puts it on Sita. And Sita, when she receives that garland, she smiles and she looks at Rama. And though she did not had any garland to reciprocate with, but she looked with such a beautiful glance it was, and as if she was weaving an invisible garland around his neck. So this is how she reciprocated, and Rama felt that she is actually offering him a garland. It was invisible, but it was with her love that she made that garland and offered him. So now we see that how Rama would see positive in every situation. So when he gets an invite to go and see Kaikeyi and Dashrath, he immediately saw positive there. Also, this offering of garland is an indication that Rama is like trying to tell Sita that from henceforth, probably this is the only thing which I'll be able to offer you, because the difficult phase of our life is about to begin. So it was an indication of that also. Now, Sita garlanded Rama. It was a token of her recognition. So because you are garlanding me, so she garlanded back to recognize that love which she could feel. Also, Sita giving the garland, it was emphasizing that Sita was telling that I'm also ready to embrace the difficulties. So Rama was indicating that difficult time is about to begin, and Sita was indicating that I'm ready for it. So now Rama goes to the room or to the palace of KAIKEYI where his father was there, and looking at his father, he was completely bewildered that what has happened to my father. It is described that Rama reaches there in Vinay Mudra. So in Vinay Mudra means out of humility, he has one hand placed over his mouth and the other hand he was holding all his jewelry so that there is no unwanted noise. So this is a way to pay respect. So respectfully he entered, and then humbly he asked that what is wrong with my father? What has happened to him? Is he suffering from some physical disease? Because Dashrath Maharaj was lying there down and he was like semi-conscious. He was not completely conscious also. So that was the situation. So he was very perplexed. Rama was thinking, what's wrong? What's wrong? And then KAIKEYI, with her wicked mind at that time, she told that what it is. She gave a summary of how he had promised that he would give her 2 boons, and now she's asking for these 2 boons. And this is his condition. And then she says that I doubt whether you are able or you are capable of fulfilling your father's desire. I mean, not exactly desire, but whatever boon he has given. So will you be able to keep your father's words? So when she doubted like that, Rama proclaims there that I am ek vachan, ek patni and ek baan. Whenever I speak words, I don't take it back, which means I stand by my words. Second, I'm ek patni. Just after my marriage, now I do not consider anybody else. I have accepted just one wife. And ek baan, once my arrow leaves my quiver, it does not come back. It directly hits the target. So I have such a principled life. So then he was like, this is such a small thing. Why my father did not ask me directly? So he was not puzzled. He was not perplexed by why he is being asked to go out of the kingdom for 14 years. His question was, or his worry was, that my father, he doesn't have so much confidence on me. He thought that I may not follow his desire also. And that is why he's reacting like this. So that was the concern which Rama had. So it is described that outside the palace, at that time, citizens had gathered from all over the country and they were all like in such happy mood and they were all celebrating that, okay, in some time the coronation would begin. So outside were the people who loved him and accepted him and wanted him to be their leader. Inside there were people whom Rama loved, but they rejected him and they just wanted him to leave. So outsiders were asking him to lead and his own people were asking him to leave the palace. So that was the situation. So this and all was happening, and then Rama paid obeisances and he said, I will go, no issues at all. And when he stepped out, there was this angry young man standing. So there was this angry Lakshman. Now Lakshman could hear what was going on inside the room, but out of respect for the king, he did not step inside. And outside, he was just burning with anger. Actually, it is described that Rama felt that as if a fireball was there outside, which would cause everything and everyone to burn. Lakshman had clenched his fist, his teeth were gritting, and this intense hate was there in his eyes. And he was very, very angry. So Rama chose not to talk to him. Rama completely ignored and walked straight. So worst way to deal with angry people is to discuss the matter when they are most agitated. So Lakshman was very agitated now, and Rama did not want to discuss anything at this point of time because that would further infuriate him. So when he started walking, and then Lakshman was supposed to hold this royal umbrella because the coronation was due. So when he was about to hold, Rama said, not needed. And then he started walking and he greeted the citizens on the way, and then he straight went to the chamber of Kaushalya. And he informed this to Kaushalya, and Kaushalya was like thunderstruck. She could not believe what she was hearing because she was making all the preparations. She was dressed in white silken sari, and she had arranged so many brahmanas who were chanting various mantras, and everything was very auspicious. And she had arranged a nice feast for his son because she knew that he has been fasting last night. And here the son comes and tells this. So she completely breaks down. She's shattered there. And then she started telling that for last 25 years, actually at this point, Rama's age is 25. So she said, for last 25 years, I have been waiting for this day. My husband does not love me. He has not much respect for me. He is always enamored by his favorite queen, KAIKEYI. And I was always neglected. So I was hoping and waiting that when my son will become the king, then at least I will get some respect. And that is also gone. And why all this is happening? And then she started telling that, please take me also along with you if you have to go. And she breaks down there. And then Lakshman also, that is the time when Lakshman actually starts speaking, and he tells Rama that if you just allow me, I am capable and I will conquer the king. Let us arrest King Dasharath and we will take over the kingdom. On that, Rama replies that, Lakshman, you claim to be strong, but I am not so strong to go against the wishes of my father. I cannot oppose my father. This is my dharma. I must follow. So saying this, somehow he informed Kaushalya, and then he started walking towards the other testing point. Now this testing point was Sita. So Rama reaches to Sita's chamber, and when Sita sees him, she asks that, what is going on in your mind? You do not look normal. What is going on? And where is your royal umbrella? Where are the singers who were singing behind you? Where are those brahmanas who were reciting those beautiful shlokas? And where are those people who were fanning you? I mean, all this was happening because he was becoming the king. So she was like, what has happened? What's wrong? What happened? Then Rama spoke in very few words about the two boons, and he informed her that he is leaving for the forest. And he said that more than the loss of the kingdom, I would be missing your company. But I have to go. So like that, he informed Sita, and then he gives her a certain set of instructions. So he says that now Bharat would be the king. So you must respect him as a king, and you must tolerate if he does something wrong. So tolerate if Bharat or Shatrugna do something wrong to you. Please take care of my parents, take care of my mothers, be equal to everyone, invest your time in deity worship, and this 14 years will just go by, and it will be like a long walk for me, and I'll come back very soon. In no time, I'll be back. When Sita heard this, she started laughing. What are you talking? And she was laughing, and simultaneously the tears started rolling through her eyes. And she was like, I am your Ardhangini. We have to share our joys and sorrows. Why you are not taking me? Okay, I am not objecting. So she did not object that what has happened. She did not question that why life has changed so much suddenly. She was asking, why are you not taking me? How can you go alone? So Rama starts describing that how in the forest there would be lions roaring, how there would be these huge waterfall which would continue falling and would disturb your night sleep, how you will not have your soft cushion to sleep but the bed of stones, how there are poisonous serpents around, how there are quicksands, elephants, creepy reptiles, insects, worms. And then there will be starvation and darkness. You would not get any food of your choice. You eat such delicate food and you wear such delicate clothes, but nothing would be available there. Heat of sun, harshness of walking on the path and the hill, you cannot tolerate, Sita. So this is how he describes. And on that, Sita says that all this is insignificant when I compare it with the feeling of separation from you. So why you want me to be separated from you? I cannot be stay separate from you. And then she starts telling that for animals, forest is their natural home. And similarly for the wife, husband is the natural home. So wherever you are, there I will be. And then she describes that when she was a child, that time her parents had called a women astrologer to check out what all is there in her future. So the women astrologer had described all good things, and then she said, but. And then after that but, she said this girl has to stay in forest for a major portion of her life. So Sita thought that this would at least convince Ram. So Sita said that I am ready to go. I have packed my bags since that day itself, because I was mentally ready that yes, I have to go to the forest and stay there. So I am not at all scared. So why are you hesitating? Come, let's go. And yet Rama was not like completely okay with that. So then Sita made a very strange remark. And this remark was, she said that if the caretaker of Mithila, King Janak, was here, he would have surely felt that he had mistakenly married his daughter to a woman claiming to be a man. Now, what can be more stronger attack on a Kshatriya than calling a man to be a woman? So this is what she does. So what she's doing is she is using all her cards. She cried, she reasoned out, she gave various examples to explain, she quoted the astrologer, and when nothing was working, this was her trump card. She thought, okay, at least this will make Rama take me. So actually Sita depicts a very self-confident wife. So a self-confident wife gives compliment to her husband, compliment. And that is not for flattery, but genuinely she observes her husband and she gives compliment. She compliment her husband, which means that she knows the strength and the weaknesses of the husband, and she is there complimenting his strengths, complimenting his area of need, complimenting everywhere, complimenting his moods and desires. And then she cares about the husband. So the care is much more needed in the time of difficulty. When somebody is happy, he does not require so much of care and affection. But then the wife, a self-confident wife, cares about the husband. And then the fourth is correct. So whenever there is a need, she would also correct the husband. So that is why Sita is said to be dharmacharini, that she would follow the dharma and she would follow her husband always when he is following the dharma, and if there is even a slight deviation, then she would correct. So these are the 4 C's of the self-confident wife, and Sita was one of them. Sita demonstrates or represents them. So Sita said that you are concerned about these 14 years of me staying in a forest, but if I am in the forest with you, then all the thorns and the pebbles which would be there on the passage would become like soft cotton balls. The path itself would become like a deerskin carpet. And I would love to be there with you to serve you in whatever capacity I can. And when I'm in the forest and the night would come, then I would feel that night is disturbing my service to you. So this is how we would become so intimate, and I'd be serving in you, and I really, really want to come with you. So finally, Rama, when he was hearing that how Sita was so convinced about this, he gives in. And he says, okay, on one condition, distribute all your belongings. And Sita instantly, she started giving off all what she had. She started distributing all the items, whatever she possessed. It is described that she had nothing left to give. Till that time, she was just giving out her belongings. Now, how come suddenly Sita had so much of detachment from her belongings? Because she had such deep-rooted attachment to her husband. She was willing to do anything, whatever he asked for, just to be with him under her care, under his care and protection. So that is all what Sita wanted, and that is how she got it. So when this gets finalized, Rama turns towards Lakshman and starts talking as if like they would be leaving now. And let's see how did Lakshman react to it. So Lakshman said, now you're talking about you and Sita leaving. What about me? You promised me that you will take me. And Ram was like, what? When did I promise that? When did that happen? So Lakshman said, well, you did not promise me directly, but when you were talking to Mother Kaushalya, so you were using Bahuvachan, like in Hindi or in Awadhi. In English, English also I and we are there. So when Rama was talking to Kaushalya, he was talking in plural. He was not talking that I am going to the forest. So the way he was speaking to Mother Kaushalya was in Bahuvachan. So Lakshman said, you did not even speak in Dvivachan. So there is singular, there is Dvivachan or two people, for two people, hum dono, like the two of us. And then there is Bahuvachan, all of us. So I, the two of us, and all of us. So Lakshman said that you were talking in Bahuvachan, or all of us are leaving for the forest. So he said that is what was inclined there. And then he said that when you were telling Sita that you are leaving her and going, and then you started asking her to take care of the deities, to become spiritual, to take care of father and all the mothers, to take care of Bharat and Shatrughna. But you didn't ask her to take care of Lakshman. So that implies that I am coming with you, Rama. Why are you talking like this? I am of course coming with you. So that is how he sort of convincing, because he knew that this was his first and last attempt to convince, otherwise Rama would not take him. So this is how he spoke. And then after that, Rama said that the father is so much in turmoil. He is grief struck. So he would need you. You only can tell what is dharma, what is adharma, how to rule and all that. So you are very much needed. You are irreplaceable. Who will take care of all these people? Who will take care of Mother Kaushalya? I am leaving, and if you also leave, then who will take care of her? So you must stay here. So basically he was telling that, Lakshman, you are irreplaceable here, and the whole world of Ayodhya, everybody here needs you. So on that, Lakshman replies that nobody needs me. Bharat will come, and Bharat is better than me in ruling and in the principles of dharma. So he'll be a very good ruler and he'll take care of the father. And as far as Kaushalya is concerned, she can take care of 1,000 Lakshmans. Who am I to take care of Kaushalya? But Rama, now both of you have decided to pack your bags and leave. Who will carry your bags? And when you are there in forest, who will get you roots and fruits to eat? And when you both would sleep at night, who will be there guarding you? Who will take care of you? Of course you you don't need me, but I think I must come as a menial servant. And then he says that, Rama, you are saying I am irreplaceable and the whole world needs me. Actually, I need you and nobody needs me. You don't need me, but I need you. I need your service, so please take me along with you. And when Lakshman said like that, Rama embraced him and Rama welcomed him also. And this is how all three of them went to their elders, to the mothers. And there is a very tragic scene as how Kaushalya was crying, and Kaushalya, while crying, and when she gets to know that Sita is also leaving, so she said that my son is already very hurt, don't hurt him. Now, can you imagine a mother-in-law telling this to the daughter-in-law that my son is already hurt and don't hurt him more? But Sita could understand that she was speaking this, Kaushalya was speaking this from her motherly affection and care for her son. And she was herself in a very difficult state right now. So she just consoled her and she said, yes, I will do whatever it requires. And then they all changed their clothes. They gave up all these royal clothes and they were wearing the tree bark. In fact, it is described that Sita was fidgeting within. She did not know how to put those clothes, and it was hurting and causing her rashes because she was only used to the softest of silks available. And yet here she was moving with her husband, willing to take up any adversities what life throws upon just to be with her husband. So this is how the three of them are actually leaving. And then Lakshman goes and Lakshman talks to his wife Urmila. So he was not very sure. He was confused, and how would Urmila react and what to do with that. So when he reaches there, actually it is described that Urmila is a painter. And when she is painting, then no one else is allowed in the palace. Only Lakshman can come. Nobody but her husband can come at that time. And so this is a beautiful scene when she is sitting in front of her canvas and she's painting a beautiful picture of Ram and Sita's coronation. And she thought that this would be the gift to the royal couple. Once they come back from their coronation, this is what she was planning to gift it to them. So with all her love and devotion, she was painting this, and Lakshman comes from behind. And because Lakshman was slightly disturbed as how he would meet his wife and how he would talk to or explain the things, so it so happened that there was a sudden noise. He dropped something, I think a flower was toppled over. And because of that, she was still finishing. She was towards her last strokes. And because of that sudden sound, she just dropped it and the colors splashed over the painting and the whole painting was spoiled. So when that happened, and then she turned behind in great anger, but then she saw it was her husband. So immediately she smiled and then she said, "Look, my dear Lord, what has happened? Suddenly this painting is spoiled. I was painting and I was planning to give it as a gift to the royal couple, but this is what has happened. This indicates some bad omen. I don't know, something wrong is about to happen." So she was concerned, and in that tone she approached Lakshman. So this is the time when Lakshman tells his wife that I'm going for such long time and I'll not be here for 14 years and you have to stay behind and I need your permission. So on this most glorious of all, Urmila replied that the opportunity to serve seniors comes very rarely. And this opportunity has come upon you. So I don't want to obstruct your path. I don't want to come in between you and your service to your seniors. And ideally, the duty of the wife is to be with the husband. So if I insist on doing my duty and come with you, then I will be a botheration for you because your focus would shift from your service to me, and I will become a botheration to Ram and Sita also, because they would also start thinking that because of them I am dragged there. So she says that though I want to do my duty, but I will sacrifice my duty so that you can do your duty nicely. So I will not ask you to take me because I want you to be perfect, because I want you to be wonderfully doing your service. Just complete focus on your duty and I'm very happy for you, and you don't bother about me and I'll be okay. When Lakshman heard these words, he was sold to Urmila for the lifetime. He was so very happy and proud of his wife. Actually, similarly, when Lakshman went to Sumitra, his mother, to inform, her mother was also very proud and encouraging. And she told Lakshman that from now on, Rama should be your king and your father, and whatever he asks you to do, you must do, and you must protect and guard them from all the difficulties. So mother was very happy, and here is the beautiful lady, the wife. She is also very happy because her husband was doing his duties, and she was so wonderful that she sacrificed her duty also. In fact, in connection to this, there is another beautiful incident that later, when actually Lakshman reaches the forest, so the first day itself, night comes and he was very tired. So when he was tired and sitting, he had this vision. So he saw that Nidra Devi, the goddess of sleep, has come. So the goddess of sleep appeared and she tells Lakshman that you are very exhausted from the day's work. So let me get you some sleep so that you will be like completely rejuvenated and fresh tomorrow morning so that you can do your services better. And Lakshman said, if I sleep, then who will guard my Ram and Sita? We are in the middle of the forest and we are surrounded by wild animals. What would happen to them? Who would take care of them? I cannot afford to sleep. So this moment onwards, I take a vow that for next 14 years, I will not sleep. During the daytime, I'll be serving my brother, and during the night, I'll be guarding them. So this is the vow he takes. Then Nidra Devi says, then what shall I do? So then Lakshman says, go to Ayodhya. My wife Urmila is there. She will attend you. So Nidra Devi comes to Urmila and she describes this incident. And then Urmila says, okay, so from now onwards, for next 14 years, I will sleep during the daytime for my husband's quota of sleep and night time for my quota of sleep. So this is how wonderful and glorious Urmila is. So today's session, we saw 3 couples. We saw Dashrath and KAIKEYI, we saw Sita and Ram, and we saw Lakshman and Urmila. So this is how we know that more than desiring each other in a relationship, we need to have a common desire, a common goal, a common purpose in life. And then we have a progressive and a happy married life. So these were some of the lessons from Ramayana from the Ayodhya section. Tomorrow again we would continue our journey, same time 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. IST, where we will be discussing about further lessons from Ramayana once they enter into the forest, and Krishna willing we will go to Lanka also and see what happens there tomorrow. So thank you all very much for joining us. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And before you all start logging off, yes, I want to express my deepest gratitude to one of the devotee in ISKCON, His Grace Shubh Vilas Prabhu. His books are a source of inspiration on Ramayana for me, so I would specifically want to mention his name. I derive a lot of inspiration from his books. And of course, Srila Prabhupada. And I would also like to mention about my grandfather, who has been singing this Ramayan ki chaupai since I was a very young little girl, and I would hear from him, and I developed my initial love for Ramayan through him. So thanking all of you once again. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhayevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ramachandra Bhagavan ki jai. Hare Krishna.
रघुवीरा रामचंद्र रण धीरा रामचंद्र रघुवीरा रामचंद्र रणधीरा रामचंद्र रघुवीरा रामचंद्र रणधीरा रामचंद्र मम बंधु रामचंद्र दय सिंधु रामचंद्र मम बंधु रामचंद्र दय सिंधु रामचंद्र मम बंधु रामचंद्र दय सिंधु रामचंद्र रघुनाथा रामचंद्र जगन्नाथा रामचंद्र रघुनाथा रामचंद्र जगन्नाथा रामचंद्र रघुनाथा रामचंद्र जगन्नाथा रामचंद्र रघुवीरा रामचंद्र रणधीरा रामचंद्र रघुवीरा रामचंद्र रणधीरा रामचन्द्र मम बन्धु रामचन्द्रधय सिन्धु रामचन्द्र मम बन्धु रामचन्द्रधय सिन्धु रामचन्द्र मम बन्धु रामचन्द्रधय सिन्धु राम 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 सीता राम 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 सीता राम 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 सीता राम 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 सीता राम राम